Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joni Young, and if you're new here, thanks so much for joining. On this 12x16 black primed canvas, I'm going to show you how to paint this pretty moth using lots of different colors. I'm going to be using a cat's tongue brush for 99% of this painting. So here are all the colors we're going to be using, and I'll list them all below in the description of this video. We've got some really pretty colors here: yellow ochre, turquoise, cobalt blue, light purple, some neon colors, burnt sienna, burnt umber, black and white. So I'm going to start with a bit of water and a bit of black and white and just sketch my moth out very loosely and roughly with this cat's tongue brush and a little bit of gray that I made using a bit of water on and off just to help that paint flow, and just do a really loose, easy sketch. And then I'm going to come in gradually with the pattern and colors. So I've got a good rough sketch here to work with now. I'm going to start applying some color, and I'm going to use burnt sienna and some burnt umber, a little bit of white. I'll come in with a little bit of yellow ochre and white for my brightest highlights. And I'll just add a really small head at the top of his body, and then come in with a few little lines in between using my black and my burnt umber. So just adding more of a shadow on the right side. The left side of his body is going to be more highlighted, and I'll be using a little bit more of my yellow ochre and my white there. So I'm not using a really wet brush when applying the paint for this moth, because when you have more of a dry brush and you don't push too hard, you just really lightly just drag your brush. It'll look like that powder that the moths have on their wings, and it really also helps to be working on a black canvas. So I'm going to continue working on the pattern, the shape, and the highlights and shadowing on this moth, and I'm using a combination of burnt sienna, burnt umber, yellow ochre, black and white right now. I really like using the cat's tongue brush because I'm really able to get in those fine details, little hairs, which you'll see me do in just a moment, on the moth's body and on either side of his abdomen. It's a great little brush, and it's almost like a two-in-one brush because you can use it as a liner brush, but you can also use it as a blending and filler brush. So here you can see I'm just taking my yellow ochre and a little bit of white and just pulling and flicking very lightly with the tip of my brush. And I'm going to add the antenna, 2 little dots, or a dot on either side, little dab with the yellow ochre and white, and then pull really carefully, a little arch for each antenna and the same arch on either side of the wings on the top. I'm going to come in with a little bit of black and just narrow this down a little bit. So I'll do this for a few moments, and then I'll start coming in with more of a pattern, working on the circles, and we'll just gradually add more and more color. Okay, so I'm going to start coming in with the circle patterns now on the bottom of the wings, and I'm going to be doing a larger one first on either side and then a smaller one right next to it, and I'm using black for this. We'll be adding a few above as well, and some colors inside that are going to be really fun, like cobalt blue, some neon pink, some neon orange, and we'll be doing a skinny ring around the black with some of my yellow ochre and some white. And I'm going to be using a little bit of white now to add some little highlights and more of the pattern on the wings. We'll just be doing little tiny dashes and little lines, little scoops with the white on the tip of my brush. And then we'll be doing sets of 2s on the bottom of the wings. So you'll see here I'll do a line, and then I'll do a line right above that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and add the remaining 2 circles down here, or if you want to call them eyes. Some people call them eyes, the circle patterns on the moth's wings. Again, I'm using black, so black circle with a little dab of black on the bottom of the circle. I'll do one on either side on the top wings. And then I'm going to add a dot inside, a colorful dot. I'm using a turquoise, nice and bright. And I'm just going to start to do a very thin, dry coat, pulling lightly to give it that powdery look. See how the color just really shows up and you get that interesting pattern to the wings by working on a black canvas. And it also looks so nice against that burnt sienna, the burnt umber, and those mid-tones of gray that we've got going on. And when we start to add a bit of the blue here, you'll see just how pretty that looks. Now I mixed my cobalt blue with a little bit of teal and created this gorgeous color. And I'm going to make it darker on either side. I'll also be adding a little bit of my light purple. And for a really pretty color, I'll be mixing a bit of my light purple with my cobalt blue. I'm going to add little accents of this color to the hair on either side of his abdomen and body. And just pull and flick a little bit of that turquoise, blue, and white, just a little touch of that, and then come in with my yellow ochre and white and start building up the highlights and more of the pattern. Add a few little skinny lines in here. And I'm not being too careful about trying to get the pattern matching the exact same on the wings. Actually, the reference photo that I used for this, they didn't really line up perfectly, so it makes it even less intimidating and overwhelming to approach this painting. I really recommend you guys do it, because if you're someone like me who has a hard time mirroring one side to the other, I think it can be really tricky, especially when you're doing it freehand. But it's very forgiving to paint moth's wings, and it is art, of course, and you can see how uneven my wings are, and it's still, I think personally, it still looks really pretty. So it just goes to show you that sometimes imperfect paintings still have a lot of character and they look pretty. Just have to use the right amount of shadowing, highlights, and blending of colors. So you can see I'm coming in here doing that ring around the black circle with yellow ochre and a little bit of white. No water on my brush, just complete straight paint, heavy bodied acrylics I'm using, just in case you guys are wondering. That's all I use now. I started out years ago, over 20 years ago, when I first started painting. I used just the little craft bottle paints, which are totally fine, and they might even be a little bit easier for beginners. I found over the years of teaching that my students found it a little bit harder to learn how to paint and blend the paint using heavy-bodied acrylics, so you might want to keep that in mind. Switch to craft paints, the looser fluid paints. Americana is nice, folk art. You can also thin your heavy-bodied acrylics with a medium if you prefer the colors. So the colors are a little bit more intense and they hold up a little bit longer once dried. I found that's just my personal opinions. And coming around, I'm going to define these circles with a wobbly ring of black again, just to make those eyes, those circles stand out more, and then just even out the brightness on these rings. Some areas have a little bit more yellow ochre and they started to dull in color, so I went back and I added a little bit more white in with my yellow ochre. Now there's a little patch of that white and yellow ochre just outside of each of these circles, so I'm going to add that there. Just a few little dabs. And I'm going to add some more blue accents in here. A little bit of blue inside each of these circles on the bottom. So right above the black, sort of in the middle. And then I'll be adding pink above that after. And I'm using a Neon Luminous Pink by Holbein today, but you can use any pink that you have. And if you don't have pink, then just take some red and add white with it. So see how pretty this color is right here? This is my light purple, just a pastel purple that I blended with cobalt blue. And I liked it so much I added it inside the circles as well. Just adding a little bit more of my brown, little burnt sienna, burnt umber, and white. I'm going to come in and add a little bit more detail with my black and a little bit more to the hairs on either side. And for the hairs, white tinted with any color that you want that we're using today will work. You can even play up on the blue if you want, or the teal. I'm using a little bit of yellow ochre. At times I've got a little bit of blue in my brush. Okay, so it's time to start coming in with my pink now. This is probably my favorite part. I love adding the pink. I think it's just starting to bring this moth all together. And like I said before, I'm taking my neon pink by Holbein. It's Luminous Opera, and I'm going to add it right underneath that yellow line and bring it down just by flicking partially into the blue. Do this on each one of the circles along the bottom. I'll then come in with my neon orange combined with my neon pink and do a little hint of that on either side of where we've got the yellow line and the pink line. Then I'm going to come in here with my neon orange and a little bit of white and continue building up the pattern. So you just want to have a little area down here and then flick up softly so it gradually kind of just gradiates and blends into the next color and patterns. I'm going to continue up the side here, head up to the top wings of the moth and go around each eye here with a little dab, and then 3 little pulls like little petals. And actually this cat's tongue brush is just the perfect shape to create these little markings on either side of the wings. Now those 3 dabs of orange on the top right wing, I just added a tiny bit of white in the center of them to make them just kind of pop out even more. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. Okay, I'm going to add a little dab here along the left side of his head, and then 2 little wiggly markings on either side of the wings as well. I'm going to be outlining these in black, but before I do that, I'm going to come in between with more of my turquoise mixed with a little bit of cobalt blue. Just going to dab this pink with a little bit of white and just soften it just a tiny bit inside here. So once it's dried, it's still going to look pink, it's just going to be a little bit lighter. I'm going to take some more yellow ochre with white and do these little dabs. Again, just redo them, make them brighter. Then I'm going to continue up above on either side with some more markings. Well, before I do that, I'm just going to outline this one more time because you can see the colors kind of faded, so I wanted to just re-highlight these using more white this time. So we'll come in and do a little flick. Some little flicks on either side. And then a little dab on either side of the eye. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more color to where I added the turquoise dots right here. I'll add a little bit more white with my turquoise. Just make them stand out a little bit more. Add a little bit more to those little markings. Then I'm going to come in and just work on the hair a little bit more. Just taking a bit of my blue, a little bit of blue and white. And I'm going to go around those little eyes with a ring of blue as well. And I'm going to do a few little squiggles, leaving spaces in between for the pattern of the hair on the bottom part of his body. Take more of my blue and just continue adding little touches of that up on the side of his body, on the side of his head, and on the antenna. I'm going to come in with more black now and just outline everything that needs to be outlined. Just doing this very, very loosely, guys. And yours isn't going to look exactly like mine, but you can just play around with your pattern, outline your colors. You'll get a really nice contrast. I just can't wait to see your guys' versions. Make sure that you join my brand new Facebook group if you haven't already. It's a place where you guys can share your versions from my tutorials. I'll leave a link below for that, and yeah, I'm really excited to see your versions of this moth on there. So I'm just going to continue outlining and redefining with my black and just making everything stand out, fixing little areas that I might need to make a little bit smaller or thinner. And then the last color that I'm going to be using is one that I made by mixing neon pink and my light lavender purple, just a pastel purple. And so I'll mix those colors, and I'll just add a little hint of that on each of the wings, and then this painting will be all done. Okay, so you can see how pretty this looks by adding a little bit of this light purple and pink. I'm going to come in with my Wisp even tail filbert brush now, and I'm going to add a little bit more detail, fine little hairs and little lines. And it's a great name for the brush because it really does make wispy lines. It's a great little brush. I've got a fan brush like this too. And I just got mine at Michael's, but you can get them online. I've seen them online on Amazon, but you can get them at most fine art stores. So I'm just using a little bit of yellow ochre and white now to add the finishing touches. I still got a hint of that purple and pink in my brush, as you can see. Kind of just like to let each color blend into one another. So I'll let you guys finish watching the rest of this video, and I want to say thank you again for all your support on Patreon, here on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and anywhere else that you follow me. Have a wonderful day, you guys. Make sure that you like this video, leave a comment below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. See you next time.